Hey, Philip, it's Dad. I just finished listening to the most recent episode of Positive Filter. Really liked it. You know, I'm becoming a big fan. I had an idea. I would like to possibly do a session with you. Maybe we could talk about, father son. We could even call it like father like son if you think that's appropriate. But I would like to participate. I think this is a great idea. Is a lot of good information being expressed in a positive light. Think about it. Give me a call back at your convenience if you think this is a idea worth pursuing. But I think it'd be neat if we do a session with us, between us. Okay. Take care, and I look to hear from you soon. Bye.
Welcome to Positive Filter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career with a little self-help around the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope that what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. It's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Filter. This is my 10th episode, so I thought for my 10th episode I'll have a very special guest. Well, I didn't really think of that earlier ahead of time, but it's coincidence that for this 10th episode I have a very special guest. This is my first family member as a guest on the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, my dad.
Yeah, hi, everyone out there in Positive Filter land. I was telling Philip that I've been listening. I've become a fan. So why don't he give me a chance to participate with him? And he has graciously agreed to do that. Just so you know.
I was going to say, graciously agreed that, I'm never going to tell you no.
Well, yeah, I would hope not at this point, but, I'm really happy that you are a father yourself and you're starting your own family and you're the head of your household and that type of thing. So I respect that. I hopefully I don't come across as intruding in that or, because I know how it felt when I was your age, starting with your mother. You have to establish yourself as first a husband, and then when you have a child, as a dad. I was very fortunate. This is a quick intro. I'm a only child. My father was Philip Linwood Wilkerson Sr. I'm a junior, and Philip has already introduced himself. He's a third. I'm an only child, so I don't have any brothers and sisters, which at times could be challenging when you're growing up in a household. My father worked 2 jobs to allow my mom to stay at home with me, during the developing years and as I started school. As a matter of fact, my mother didn't work outside the home until after my father passed, and he died when I was 13. And we'll get into some of the specifics about that when Phil talks about other things.
But just give the listeners a little introduction about yourself. So, I can just say everyone that listens knows that my dad is the Colonel. So give a little background about who you are and why we call you the Colonel.
That's kind of funny. I could tell a story about that. When I got promoted, I gave Philip a chance. He asked me what should he call me. And I told him, I said, you have a couple of choices. You can call me Dad, you can call me Mr. Wilkerson, you can call me Colonel Wilkerson, but I would prefer you call me Dad. And he said, okay, Colonel. And I thought that was kind of good. But when I was a young guy, I was pretty organized. Like I said, I was the only child. We didn't call them crews back there, but the guys I hung out with all knew that someday I would end up in the military. I guess the way I acted, I was a Cub Scout, a Boy Scout, went to a military college, the Virginia Military Institute. So it was kind of in my blood, as you said. I came from a very loving home, but my mother was very organized. Strict could be another word. So I had no problem transitioning into the military or into the military environment. And I'm not going to get off and tell Mama Wilkerson stories, but my mother was quite a unique individual. Like I said, my father worked 2 jobs, so usually when he got home, it was all good times between he and I. We used to watch TV together, and he spent what I consider quite an amount of time, considering how much he worked. So when he died, I was quite hurt. It's kind of funny how things work out, because I tell people all the time, you know, if given a choice as a child, because my mother was there all the time telling me, you know, what to do and what not to do, correcting me, disciplinary, that type of thing. She wasn't my favorite of the 2 parents. She was very loving. Don't get me wrong. But my dad, when I saw him, it was pretty much good time. I mean, we talked, we played checkers. I really admired him. Matter of fact, as I get older, I'm hoping more to transition into to my dad, which even my family has noticed since I've gotten out of the service. I'm starting a little bit of a transition. I guess it's just getting old too.
Yeah, because I remember, listening previously in the podcast, you know, when I was asked to describe you in one word, my word was discipline. And I am saying it in a positive light, not a negative light, is that is one takeaway that I've admired, and I think it's slowly, I don't know where it morphed in for me, because growing up, I wasn't the cleanest or most structured kid in myself, but I found myself gravitating toward that as a dad. And it's crazy, full circle, the mannerisms and saying stink a butt, and I don't know, I'm slowly melting into you and you're melting into your dad. I don't know if that's like a cyclical thing that just happens, and the empathy and the situations of understanding where you're coming from. There's no way to prepare to say, oh, you'll see what it's like when you're a dad. And I kept on being like, okay, sure, you know, sure, Dad, you're just strict, or you're just organized. You're so particularly strict. But now that I see what it takes to be a parent, I'm like, okay, that makes perfect sense. Why you're organized. That makes perfect sense why discipline is a good thing, and why discipline was something that, as a value, I try to impart on myself. Like when I have things that I want to do, things that I really am determined to do, I found that modeling the discipline that you show with things that you want to do has been really helpful. But it's just crazy, because no way I was never going to admit that when I was 17. Like, I was never going to admit that when I was 17.
And there's no reason to. There's a couple of points that come out that I think we both realize. There really is no set pattern or book or set of books that tells you how to be a dad. It just not, because every situation is different. Right. It really is important, and I hope I don't offend anybody by saying this, but it's really important that you select the right woman for a wife. And I'm making the assumption to be a dad, there is a mom. Even if the mom is not always around, there's still two people, and you kind of got to play, and play is not the right word, but you kind of got to kind of play on the role. And here's what I mean. Both of you can't be what I call the bad guy. Kids need to have choices, and they need to be able to, if they need compassion, they need to have a feel that there is a parent that they can go to. However, just like that, they also need the parent that says no. Both parents can't say yes. Both parents can't say no. You don't contradict each other. I'm not saying that, but usually there's the parent that the kids know that they gotta be kind of straight around. And for me, as straight as it sounds, it was my mother, because she was there all the time. My father, right. I won't say my father was he was easygoing personality-wise, but what I'm saying is, because I didn't see him a lot and he didn't see me a lot, he didn't want to spend his time, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. But I needed that, so I got that kind of from my mother. Now, with that all said, when I married your mother, my personality was more towards the no, and her personality was more towards the yes, and that's why we kind of worked things out. Like I said, it's not that I was trying to be the bad guy. I mean, I like to say yes when yes was said, but I think both you and Lois realized that if it had to be the no person, I was probably going to be the one that said no and enforced whatever needed to be enforced. That's just, I looked at the role as the father. Now,
but what about in contradiction, and that just say, like, I like what you said. There's no parenting book, and it's all different styles. Just my counter argument is that I think maybe the yes or no person is more like, instead of being a binary yes or no, there's like a spectrum. And I think, maybe both parents could be the parents that say no, and both parents could be the parents that say yes. I'm not saying that your way was wrong or anything. I'm just saying I don't know if it's a different mindset, because what I take away from there is that in your generation or in that style, your dad worked a lot and your mom was home. But what about if both parents are working full time and both parents don't? You know what I'm saying? When you both come home from work, you don't want to both be the you have to have discipline, but you both don't want to be the no person, because your quality time at home is short, just like your dad's time was short. If you get what I'm saying in that point. Like,
I understand exactly.
I see, when one person works a lot, like, stay-at-home parents, it might be easier for one parent to be the disciplinarian because they're with the kids all day. And so when the dad comes home, like traditional dad or whoever the working parent comes home, I agree they want to be the one that's like, okay, I just got off work. The time I want to spend with my kid, I want it to be the fun time. But most times, typically now in this, I would say, this age with people can't really as much afford to have both parents or one parent not work. So both parents kind of have to make sure they have to kind of both do the non-traditional roles per se. Like, both dad has to be a compassionate and disciplinarian, as well as mom and disciplinarian and compassionate one, because both of their time is not necessarily, they both since working so much, both of them have limited time. I don't know. That's just
I agree with you. I agree. It is a spectrum. A couple points though. We got to ensure. I feel these are all observations, my observations. So you take, you can take them for what they were, my observations. But
Right.
you want to establish a relationship, and a relationship is built on trust. Well, love first, trust comes out of that love, and then understanding. I don't know if you ever remember this or not, but we were at Walter Reed. I said I wasn't going to tell stories, but I got to tell this one because it's kind of funny. And you were I was there. You were getting a shot, which is you and I. And you did something that I thought was inappropriate for the place and time. And I corrected, or I thought I was in the process of correcting, and it was the point was I made a mistake. I was wrong. I shouldn't have corrected you because what you did wasn't what I thought you did. And I remember telling you, I said, you're going to have to trust me. This is my first time being a dad and your first time being a kid. Mistakes are going to be made. Now, at your age, that probably didn't resonate at all.
No.
However, I think as you got older, you saw. I mean, I would venture to say that you probably make more mistakes. Mistakes is probably too harsh a word. You make more corrections with the first kid than you do with the second kid because this is your first time being a parent. So, I mean, there are going to be adjustments. That's that spectrum you talked about. However, I will tell you, you want to ensure that you instill discipline in your children so they can face the world, not just to be a meanie. I mean, the world is structured so that there are the time limitations. I mean, I don't need to. You know exactly what I'm talking about. There are pressures. I mean, you got to follow rules. You got to follow laws. I mean, I can go on and on and on. So there's a reason why a parent's responsibility is to ensure to prepare a child, his child, their child, to be functional and operational in today's world. And it's even harder now because the world is going crazy as far as I'm concerned. But my point is, you need to prepare your kids. So that means there are going to be times that you're going to do, and I say this all the time. I'm 60-something years old, and I still have to do stuff I don't want to do. I mean, and that takes discipline. Is all I'm saying. I mean, there are mornings I don't want to get up and go to work. I mean, there's stuff your mother had me do. I don't want to do it. It's the right thing to do, though. So, but that's self-discipline. It's a parent's responsibility to give a child that. So, when you see a child, example, when you see a child that's in church, that's crying and hooping and hollering because they don't want to be there, you have to teach them a lesson. Because, yes, you can take them out, or you can say, well, I'm not going to church. But the point is, 30 years from now, that child can't hoop and holler and not go to work. Does that make any sense?
Right. I think the scenario is that if I agree with that in scenario of discipline, and I agree with the scenarios of putting in a situation. If you want to be in a situation.
So you're right. Right. And I'm not saying there's only one way to do that. My father never spanked me. And I don't want to get into the discussion about spanking and stuff like that. Because I mean everybody has their opinion. So exactly. Because we had so much fun together, when he sat me down and looked at me with that serious look and said, I work 2 jobs to try to give you a home, and you have just that was worse than a whipping. I would rather, and I tell people all the time, I would rather go to my mother and say, beat me. I don't want to, I mean, I felt I had let him down. That's one style. Now, on the other hand, my mother, when I did something wrong, immediate response, and like I said, I'm not going to get into the pros and cons and my mother would spank me.
Right.
Different actions for different people, different responses. I mean, my mother could talk to me all day long. That didn't have the same effect as a spank, and my father didn't need to spank me because a talk was good enough. Does that make any sense?
Well, because I was saying, I had the analogy, I don't know if it's a metaphor, but I thought about this before we even did the episode, is that, to me, the perfect, I think, or the example I use is like, being a parent is like making pizza, right? There's clearly rules straight up to make a good pizza and a bad pizza, right? Like, don't burn it, don't leave it in the oven too long, whatever. And with the parenting, there's like straight concrete rules of being a good parent and a bad parent. Like, don't leave your kids for like 3 hours or something like that, you know? But then in regards to a good pizza, there's so many different ways and styles to make a good pizza. You know, thin crust, thick crust, whatever.
Right.
And so, you know, while there is things for your recipe that worked, I believe you made a good pizza. I believe you're a good parent, 100%. But I think that there's pieces of your recipe that I like that I'm going to add to my pizza, and there's pieces of your recipe that I don't care for. And does that make your pizza a bad pizza? No. Your pizza is still a good pizza, but my pizza is a different pizza. And with that being said, there's definitely concrete examples of things that I really, really admire and things that I am going to emulate and copy and be like, that is just like what my dad did. And then with different scenarios, I guess one for being, like, I do believe, and going back to church, I do believe that faith is important. But I think that my concept would be, I want my, like, the understanding part is that I want my son to go to church when he has the concept of understanding the message, rather than me just sitting in church for him to be sitting in church. So I think overall the pizza is the same. I think the pizza is both of us thinking there's scenarios that we want our children to be in that we find important and structured. I think it's just we have different presentations. And I think that what the big message is between me and you, father and son, is that I don't think we can come to an understanding where I know the way that you did things is different but not bad. And I think I want the main takeaway for the way I'm doing things is I'm doing things differently, but it's not bad. And we both did things differently with the common goal of raising good human beings. And, you know, I like to believe that I turned out a way that, you know, Lois and I turned out a way that is like you felt like you did a good job. And I you know, sometimes I think like, hopefully, you know, I know I was a tough kid, but I think the overall recipe of you being a parent, I turned out in the long run, whether it's not at 17 or when I was having, you know, knucklehead phases, but as a 32-year-old man, I turned out pretty good. You know, I didn't, you know, life.
Well,
I turned out.
I tell you all the time, I agree that, or I wouldn't be talking to you on the phone if you were a knucklehead. I guess to carry your analogy one thing further, you're absolutely right, because the stove may be different. The temperature may be the same, but maybe I was using because I'm old, I was using a coal stove, and now you have an electric stove. I mean, everything. I agree with what you say. The only thing I would, again, just my observation, there are certain, I won't call them norms, but there are certain truisms, and the truisms that I can think of to start with is love. Everything must be done in love. Even the hard stuff, the stuff that you know is gonna make the child unhappy, but it's the right thing to do, and you do out of love.
Right.
Second, the second thing is, and it's age appropriate, I understand, but communications. You got to communicate. You got, even when it's what's the word for it? Even when it's hard or difficult or a subject that you really don't you don't feel comfortable talking to your kid about like the birds and the bees, whatever. But what I'm saying is you got to communicate, because if you ain't communicating, that means the kid is getting it from somewhere else. And I would rather I would rather get my shot in. And the problem with that is that there's so much stuff out there now. I mean, kids can go on the internet and get all kinds of stuff. And matter of fact, I would just advise you as a grandfather, you got to monitor what your kids look, because what people present is their version. It ain't necessarily the truth, but it's out there. It really is out there. So you really got to be careful.
There's more access to information. Yeah, there's more access to information.
Exactly.
And the kids, I do totally agree with you. Like, the kids can be on an iPad and keep swiping, and before you know it, they're on YouTube looking at crazy stuff.
Well, like I said, you want to prepare your children for the world. But I mean, you know, it's like, it's a couple of ways to learn how to swim. I mean, you can either take lessons and learn the strokes and whatever, or you can just take a kid and throw it in the deep water. I don't necessarily sign up for just throwing the kid in the deep water and let them, you know, because of survival, the kid will survive. But that, to me, is not the real right way to learn how to swim. So maybe that's a poor analogy too. But what I'm saying is instead of throwing them out,
that's the best way.
Yeah, but instead of throwing them out to the world, teach them strokes. I mean, ease them into it. I mean, and the only way you can do that is communicate. So we talk about love. We talk about communications. And I don't want to get on my soapbox, but I do have one soapbox, and you already alluded to it. There has to be a foundation of faith. And I will tell you, so you don't send your kids to kids. Kids don't do, and you can agree or disagree, kids don't do what you tell them to do. They do what they see.
Oh, yeah.
Telling the kid to go to church, telling the kid to have faith, telling the kid to do right by people, telling the kid to try to live by the golden rule, tell the kid about what I call random acts of kindness, opening doors for old ladies, you know, helping ladies cross the street. All that should not be told. That should be seen.
Right.
And and how you treat your parents, how you treat the older ones in your family. I mean, you can preach all that, but the children need to see that, and then hopefully they, you know, like I said, they'll pick up. So I mean, not that I'm taking credit for anything, but just the fact that you and Maggie go and see Aunt Flossie or go see Aunt Flo. I would like to think that you saw the way I treated my mother. So I can tell you, you know, the father to a son, this is the way you should treat your mother. No, I should show you the way you treat your mother. Now, you know, that's a little bit of an exaggeration because, you know, maybe your grandmother or my mother is not living and stuff like that. But you understand what I'm saying? How you treat older.
No. It's totally. That's not even a. I don't even think I could even disagree with that because, you know, you can talk the talk, but do you really walk the walk? And, you know, obviously, this Positive Filter, the Ill Feel Awards, or just being kind to, you know, people and showing, I think that hopefully I am creating a model that my son emulates. You know, I definitely see, like, it's cyclical too, you know, when you see happy marriages, or long-lasting marriages that even go through tough times, not just good times, but tough times and arguments and disagreements, but still stay together. It models that, you know, married people go through hard times, but still go through together and do well. And so when you have two sets of parents, both you and Maggie's parents that have been married a very long time and communicate very well and work together, obviously it shows what, you know, good marriages look like. And you're right, like just little simple things like, you know, I find myself doing even the most random things that you've done. Like I go to the same post office. Why do I go to the same post office? Because I like talking to the same person that works behind the counter, because you emulated that when you go to businesses or you go to small stores, you build rapport and relationships with people. And the people that work with people, and you always say, yes, sir, no, sir, thank you, have a nice day. And you always treat, no matter if it's the president of a company or the janitor at a organization, you always say, sir, respectful, see how they're doing, daily going. Those things are things that I definitely find myself emulating for me. And I don't think there was really an argument, and I don't think there could be an argument possibly to say that kids are sponges that watch your actions more than your words, because you can tell them everything over and over and over again, and it might not register, but if they see it over again. I really don't have a disagreement on that. I just think that you brought it up, is that the environment and the way of going about showing the kids might be a little different, or how you show your own kids might be a little different. And the way I show Bennett, I can't show Bennett how I treat, the exact same people the way you treat it, because you have a different relationship with people like that. But what I will say is that, the overall treating people, the golden rule, yes. I think, it's like there's general concepts that your kids can pick up, but then there's also circumstances where they're unique, if that makes sense. But the overall construct, regardless of general to specific, is that you're right, there's a foundation, regardless of, if it's a stranger or a very close family member, is mutual respect and love. And a deeper love for family and friends. Obviously, you have a deeper love for family and friends than you have for a stranger on the street. But the overall basis there is that everyone deserves to be treated with some respect, or everyone deserves to be treated with love, and and then the greater thing, and by doing that with your own kids, you raise individuals that hopefully don't grow up to be like racist or sexist or violent. I don't know. I totally agree with that. There's really no argument, and I totally believe that most times the things that I see myself acting like you in, it wasn't subconsciously. Now it comes back to me. It's not because you told me this is how you act. Make your bed every day. I think you probably said it a lot, but now I feel like I see it. I saw you do it so much. That's why I do it. I think you're right. Like, I think in future generations, for kids to act like their parents, most times it's not because they just heard stuff a lot. It's because they watched and they took note of those actions. And I think eventually those actions become the behaviors that they find normal and appropriate,
It's a degree of comfort. And I guess I would carry that one other step. You and Maggie are in a very unique, and I would like to say blessed situation, but that may be a little self-serving, but you're unique because I only met my maternal grandmother maybe twice. You have, or Bennett has, both sets of grandparents, around or close enough that he can benefit from us, them. You need to, as much as you can, take full advantage of that. Matter of fact, I got in a conversation with somebody before, and they were asked what I remember about, and it's funny how even though I didn't see her that much, the type of impression, my mother's mother, your great grandmother, was I don't know why this stands in my mind. She was a large woman. I mean, the image I have is like she could have played linebacker. She was just broad-shouldered. I don't know how tall. Well, no, I'm just saying she was a big woman. But she has such a soft voice. Now, can you imagine as a child, and I'm saying I'm Bennett's age or maybe a little bit older, that's intimidating to see a person, a woman especially, of that structure or stature. That's what stature.
Structure.
But when she spoke with such a soft voice, and I still remember that today. My only point is, to me, there is a true advantage in the lineage. I guess now again, this is observation and this is just my feeling. There is a sense of belonging. There's a sense of family pride. There's a sense of belonging. Maybe I already said that. I just take advantage. My advice, because it says when here, creating your own style. My advice in that is take full advantage of that. And like you said, all of our styles are different. All our personalities are different, but that makes up the individual. The reason I am the person today is because I'm half my mom and I'm half my dad. Now, as I get older, family members saying I act more and more like my dad. But I think you can understand that because my children are grown now. I don't have to be as organized, and I'm not. I don't have to be as, when I say disciplined, I'm toward the end of my career. I mean, so that doesn't mean I don't go to work and don't come to work on time. I'm not saying that. But I don't have the same pressures of trying to get promoted. I don't know. Trying to do every task to the best of my ability. I can go to baseball games in the afternoon. I can take leave. Does that make any sense what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just.
I mean, you're saying it. Yeah, family is a resource, and not a lot of people have that resource accessible to them.
Right, and as you go through life, you go through stages. Like you said, when you were 17, I wouldn't expect you to understand half the crap we're talking about now. I mean, that wouldn't be the part of that's the part of the maturing process. Another saying of mine that you can have is, I said, there's only one thing worse than a young fool, and that's an old fool. The assumption is, as you live life and gain experiences, you learn from that. That's
you should learn a lesson. Yeah, you should be smarter at the end of it, wiser at the end.
And your grandfather, my father, used to say, you should learn something. If it ain't but one thing, you should learn something every day, and you should not repeat mistakes. So the point is, life is a learning process. You learn from your mistakes, and you should learn a lesson. That's where I call random acts of kindness. Matter of fact, I was going to bounce an idea off you sometime when we sit down, because if we could push that in our society, I give you an example. I went into 7-Eleven today to buy a coffee. Yeah. Lady was, one of the things, I opened the door for a lady, and I spoke to her. I came in, and I got my coffee. She was up there. She gave the lady some money and walked out and got in her car and drove off. Well, I went to pay for my coffee. The lady said, the lady just got in the car, paid for your coffee. I said, she didn't have to do that. The lady don't know me from Adam. But she felt impelled. I opened the door for her, and I didn't do it for coffee. That's just what I do.
You didn't know you were going to get coffee, yeah.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying? And I spoke to her. I said, "Good morning, ma'am," and I got a coffee out of the deal. That's what our society. That's what our society needs to get to. That's what if I have any influence, that's what I want my offspring, you, Lois, and future offspring, Bennett, to learn. Because, let's be realistic. At most, I got another 30 years. At most.
No, you got with technology. Dad, you got to hold on until the Redskins win another Super Bowl.
Well,
so that's about another 40
well, I
years.
I would hope that would happen within 30 years, but who knows? Oh yeah. Well, a matter of fact, I'm still hoping to go to a what I call a Beltway World Series between the Orioles and the Nationals. That's a possibility.
So then you gotta hold on for that too, then, huh?
Yeah, but no, I don't want to ramble because this is a good topic. Maybe it depends on what type of reaction you get from your
listeners.
The people who listen, because I'm listening to how this comes out. Maybe the next time it can be Jeff, you and I, because he'll probably have a different perspective having girls. I would tell you the way and people, you already know this. The way I treated Lois growing up and the way I treated you growing up we're different. I would like to think some of the foundation stuff that we talk about, the communication, the love, that type of stuff was the same. But black men in our society have a special challenge.
Yes,
and I was not, and I was not going to let you go out into the world unprepared for that.
No, I think that's what I think I wanted to lead into that for a little bit briefly. Is that I think that is one topic of race that me and Hillary talked about. I think in a race episode, while it is not fair that we had to do so, I feel like with being a black male, but also if you have a little black girl, just a black child in general, is that the structure in your home is not only essential, but it could be, not say life-saving per se, but I guess so, life-saving. I mean, it's that you need to prepare them for the world because, quite honestly, it's dangerous at certain points. And so I think right at that structure in the home is very, very important. That preparation of you can't do things like little Johnny in class, who happens to be white or something, is important. And while it's not fair, you said that too, there's sometimes hard discussions that parents need to have that explains that there's not fairness.
I can't say it any better, but I'm just saying. But again, I feel that's the father, that's the parent's responsibility. Overall, the parent's responsibility is to prepare that child to go out in the world and be a functioning, operational, good person. Which goes back to one other quick vignette. I was asked maybe about a week after you were born by one of my coworkers in Germany. He said, you're all excited, you got a son. What do you want him to be? Is the question that was asked specific. And I know exactly what I think. Maybe I told you this before. And my direct comment to him was, I want him to be a good man. That's all I said. And he said, well, no, I'm not talking about that. And I said, well, I am. He wanted like an occupation, a vocation.
Like a doctor, a lawyer. Yeah.
But that's not, as a father, I don't worry about that. You make that decision. My job is to prepare you to go out, not you specifically, but we are talking about you specifically, but a parent's job is to prepare the child to go out into the world and do good stuff. And that good stuff has nothing to do with money, has nothing necessarily, it's just the way you conduct yourself in society. Are you the one that's pushing people into the fire when the house is burning, or are you the one pulling people out of the house when the house is on fire? Are you the one that, and all else, and people want to do, let's say, violent acts, random acts? Are you the one that encouraged them to do that, or are you the what I call the voice of reason? I can go on and on about the different, but that's what parenting responsibilities are. I could care less if you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, a college president. That to me was not the issue all along. And I remind your sister of that all the time, because she's worried, but right now she hasn't found her niche. I don't worry about that.
I ain't find mine.
No. I'm talking about as long as she is a functioning, good person, the niche thing will come. I really believe that. She doesn't believe it, but I really believe that, because when I went into the service, I didn't have the faintest idea I was going to end up flying helicopters.
Right.
That's what life is all about. But I did have some control over, how I treated people, getting promoted, doing what I was told to do. I had control over that. Not getting fired, following rules.
Yeah.
So, okay. I think I've beat that.
I don't think you beat a dead horse. I think that was like the perfect place to end, because I think, honestly, for the listeners, at the end of the day, I think we had this long discussion. And I think the listeners will see that we have different styles. Me and you are different and the same. And regardless of those differences, I think I want the same thing for Bennett. Like, quite honestly, I think I've said the same thing. I think I have said the same thing. I just want to be a good person and treat people good, treat people well. And I think that's a good place to stop, because I think that no matter where we may have dissected or ventured off in our styles of parenting or styles of looking at the world, I think essentially, quite honestly, we both cross-sect and come back to the point. The essential point is what I want for Bennett is the same thing you wanted for me. That's really the only thing I want for him.
And the topper on that is the same thing my dad wanted for me.
Yeah. So
I'm saying it's generational.
First of all, I was even surprised you cut up on the podcast. We all know that you have a flip phone.
Okay, you had to bring that up. Okay.
I didn't know you was up on the technology. I'm just teasing, but it really, all jokes aside, I think hearing that you're supporting the Positive Filter, positive random, this does go along with random acts of kindness, means a lot to me. And it really makes me happy to have you as a guest on the podcast. And
I'm glad
like I said, this
agreed to
ain't
it.
going anywhere, so we can do another one in the future. Maybe we'll get some feedback from the listeners. But I really thank you so much for being on the show, Dad. Thank you so much for giving me life in general and raising me. Thank you so much for making me a good human being, and I hope hopefully a good human being. I don't know. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, my parting shot, and this is the last you hear from me, is always remember, no matter what, I love you, son. That's you're in my heart always. I love you. Just remember that.
You have been listening to Positive Philter, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. This episode of Positive Philter was edited by Ronald Young Jr., host of Time Well Spent podcast and creator of 08's Big Ron Studios. For this episode, I'd like to thank my dad, retired Colonel Philip L. Wilkerson Jr., for being a guest and also setting a great model of fatherhood for me. As always, I'd like to thank Ryan for the music, Maggie for being an amazing and supportive wife, and all the listeners. If you have any questions for Positive Philter, please message me or use the hashtag #PositiveFilter on Twitter. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends. Spreading positivity is a movement. Thanks for listening.